If you think you're safe just because it's Christmas Eve, you're wrong. Because sometimes the scariest things don't happen in dark forests or abandoned houses. They happen in the most ordinary place you can imagine. A bus stop, a sick college girl, and a man who should not have been there. What happened that night still feels like someone pressed pause on my life, and a stranger stepped inside it. This is the kind of story that makes you look over your shoulder the next time you're alone in public. And trust me, you're not prepared for how it ends. This is a true story that happened to me, Emily, on Christmas Eve of 2018. Even now, years later, I still feel a cold shiver crawl up my spine whenever I think about it. Imagine this. It's Christmas Eve, 2018, around 9 p.m. Your breath turns into fog as soon as it leaves your mouth. The streets are empty, silent, swallowed in a kind of holiday stillness you only get once a year. And I was standing alone at a deserted bus stop. I was sick, coughing non-stop, barely able to speak, carrying a 13-pound bowling ball, a few tennis rackets, and a bag of leftover food. I had promised my friend Hannah that I would go to her place to give her elderly cat its nightly medicine. As I stood there freezing, a car slowed down and stopped right in front of me. 3 men stepped out, speaking a language I didn't recognize. They stared at me for way too long enough for a knot of fear to tighten in my stomach. Then the car drove away and left one man behind. He stood under the dim yellow streetlight, staring straight at me without blinking. I looked away, pretending not to notice. But when I glanced back only seconds later, he was suddenly sitting right next to me. I hadn't heard him walk. I hadn't heard a single sound. It was like he just materialized beside me. I leaned to the side to cough, and that's when I felt it, a cold, heavy arm wrapping around my shoulders. He pulled me close, tight. I froze completely. He quietly asked, "You okay?" His tone wasn't concerned. It sounded like he was studying me, testing me. I whispered that I was fine, just waiting for the bus. He let go, but after a minute, he wrapped his arm around me again, this time sliding his hand slowly down my back through my jacket. Every muscle in my body went rigid. Then I heard it. Click. A tiny electronic sound. I looked down and saw a small device in his hand. Not a phone. It looked like some kind of mini walkie-talkie. That's when I knew he wasn't alone, and he wasn't randomly hanging around a bus stop on Christmas Eve. When the bus finally approached, I quietly said, "My bus is here." He answered immediately, "I know. I'm getting on too." My stomach dropped. He followed me onto the bus. I stood on purpose so he couldn't sit right next to me, but in the reflection on the bus window, I could see it clearly. He wasn't looking at his phone, or outside, or at anything else. He was staring right at me through the glass. I texted Hannah, "Someone is following me. I'm scared." On the bus, the message took forever to send. I couldn't go to Hannah's place. I couldn't go home either. I needed somewhere with cameras, security, and co-workers. So I decided to get off at the stop near the restaurant where I worked. When the bus arrived, I stepped off. He stepped off right behind me, and before I could take 2 steps, his hand clamped down hard on my shoulder again, harder than before. Another click from the device in his hand. I forced myself to walk calmly, even though my heart was beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I kept thinking he'd pull me away at any moment. Then I saw at the back entrance to the restaurant, Carlos, one of the chefs, was standing there talking to a co-worker. The door was propped open. This was my only chance. I twisted out of the man's grip and ran full speed toward the door. I started shouting or trying, to my voice cracking and thin from sickness, just enough for Carlos to understand that the man behind me was dangerous. The moment I got inside, Carlos slammed the door shut and locked it. 2 seconds later, the handle started jerking violently. Then the banging began. It sounded like he was trying to break the door down. We called mall security. As we waited, I saw him through the glass windows of the ice cream shop across from us, just standing there, staring, unmoving. When security finally arrived, he was gone. A few days later, my manager told me the mall security wanted to know if I wanted to press charges. I said I just wanted to know who the man was and what he was doing there, but they never contacted me again. No name, no report, no footage, nothing, as if the whole thing had been erased. And ever since that night, whenever I pass a quiet bus stop, I feel like I see him again. Tall, silent, watching, and the scariest part isn't what happened that night. It's that I don't know if he's still out there, looking for someone else who's alone. This story is also true. My name is Jeremy, and it happened 2 years ago in early December. Scott and I used to be best friends back in middle school and high school. After graduation, he moved to a small mountain town with his family, while I stayed in New York City for work. We didn't fight, we just drifted apart. Then one day, out of nowhere, he messaged me, "You should visit sometime. The mountain is beautiful this time of year." Something about it made me nostalgic. So I went. The drive up was long, icy, and nearly pitch black by the time I arrived. His house was an old wooden place tucked on the side of the mountain, surrounded by only a few other homes spaced ridiculously far apart. Scott came out to greet me, but something was immediately off. He looked different. His eyes seemed unfocused, and he talked slower. Pauses between sentences like he kept forgetting what he was saying. Inside the house was nearly empty, bare furniture, old decorations, a long, dark hallway directly across from the couch, leading to 2 empty guest rooms and a bathroom. No lights at the end, just a black rectangle stretching into the back of the house. For some reason, that hallway made me feel uneasy the moment I saw it. We barely talked the first night. Scott kept staring toward the hallway like he was listening for something. When I went to bed on the pull-out couch, I left a small light on near the hallway because the darkness felt suffocating. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of loud footsteps above me. Not walking, running, fast, back and forth across the floorboards. Then, silence. I lay there frozen for a long time before eventually falling back asleep. The next day was worse. Scott barely ate, barely spoke, and every now and then, I'd catch him staring at me too long, like he was checking something. Throughout the day, he walked down that dark hallway at least 5 times, but I never heard the bathroom flush, never heard a door close, never heard any sound at all. It was like he went down there to stand. That night a snowstorm rolled in. The house shook from the wind. I tried to fall asleep, but around 2 a.m. again, I woke up, this time to a soft scraping sound coming from the hallway, something dragging lightly across the wooden floor. Then a sudden tap on the wall behind me, like someone flicked it with their finger. My heart dropped. I turned to look down the hallway, pitch black. I didn't move. I just forced myself to close my eyes until sleep eventually pulled me under. The third night was the worst night of my life. I woke up but couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. My mind was awake, my body was dead weight. And at the far end of the hallway, Scott was standing there, completely still, facing me. I couldn't see his face, it was swallowed by the darkness, but I could feel him staring. I tried to scream his name. Nothing came out. He stood there for what felt like a full minute. Then, slowly, he turned and walked into the guest room at the end of the hall. Silent, effortless, wrong. When my body finally snapped out of the paralysis, I sat up, gasping for air. Sweat soaked through my shirt despite the freezing air in the house. I whispered his name. No answer. Against every instinct, I walked down the hallway toward the room he had gone into. When I entered, the room looked empty, but in the far corner, near the window, I saw the shape of a person standing completely still, facing outside. I backed out instantly and ran upstairs. Scott was asleep, deep asleep, breathing normally. There was no way he had just been downstairs moments earlier. I shook him awake and told him what I saw. He refused to go downstairs, absolutely refused. When I asked, "Scott, who is in your house?" he just shrugged, and something about that shrug terrified me more than anything else. I packed my things as fast as I could, ran to my car, started it with shaking hands, but as I backed out of the driveway, I made the mistake of looking back. In the window of the guest room at the end of the hallway, someone was standing there, a silhouette, still, watching. That was the last time I ever saw that house. After I left, Scott stopped responding to my messages completely. I finally threatened to call for a wellness check. He texted back one thing, "I'm fine," and then never answered again. Whatever happened to him, whatever I saw in that house, it wasn't just Scott living there, and I pray I never find out what or who it really was.